Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me, as always, are Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. Together, the three of us are going to break down Tuesday's slate in the NHL. 8 games on the docket. A lot of homework to do for most of these games. There's a ton of balls in the air. We're going to do our best to set you up as best we can. We'll go through all 8 games one by one this time around, and then we'll just mention which ones are our favorite bets at the very end of the show. But we'll start with the Ottawa Senators. They're in Boston. They're on the second night of a back-to-back here. The Sens are plus 180. The Bruins also on a second night of a back-to-back are minus 218. Total here is 6. Boston can wrap up the Atlantic Division with a win over the Capitals on Monday night, so that obviously matters with how Boston would approach this game. I still think no matter what goes on, and the Senators are in New York City to play the Rangers on Monday night, but I think no matter what happens here, whether it's Boston wraps up the division on Monday night or they don't, and they need to win this one to do so, I still like the Senators here, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I would like it a lot less. If the Bruins do need to win the division here, that would change my handicap a little bit. I still agree that plus 180, which is the current price, would be playable. We'll see where it goes. But my thinking is you're going to want to watch, and I know this is a bit of a tricky one with our pod coming out after we've prior to Monday night's games, but even tomorrow morning, I still think you'll probably find better prices than you'd see once there's official confirmation that the Bruins rest guys, which I think they will be doing if they win Monday night, which I'm expecting them to do. So I locked in the Sens now. I think it'll be playable to plus 170. And I think what I would do is just, if you hear this, try to get on it as quick as possible with the expectation that they do rest guys. I should say, actually, I would stop at plus 180 if the Bruins lose tonight, and then the situation becomes that they'll need to win the division and then never probably rest any guys. So those are my thoughts on this. I kind of hate that we need the Sens in a couple of critical spots. We've given out, Carolina presidents going back to last summer, and the Sens need to win that for us on Monday, which who knows. And then same thing here. So I don't even think at this point in the year there's much point in talking about what the Senators are doing. They're still a team that can punch up well, but also just complete joke in so many areas, and the goaltending is so bad. But this is a pretty humongous number, and if you can get a chance on the Bruins resting some key pieces, I think you just take it.
Yeah, Mike, you want me to share here or wait to the end?
No, go now.
Yeah, I have it technically as my best bet here, and a lot of what Nick outlined, I would agree with, and also too, you just look. I mean, this will be the third time they played this year. First game, Boston won 3-2 in overtime. Second game, Boston won 6-2, but that game was kind of blown open. It was pretty tight, 5-on-5, and I think that's just kind of been the recipe with what we know about Ottawa in terms of how they can punch up. And I'm just basically rolling the dice here on Monday afternoon that the Bruins beat the Capitals and that this game means nothing to them. So really, this was about the price and the time that we got to bet it. And so, with all the time shift and everything like that, I'm sorry if I if I can't help you by Tuesday when you listen to this.
Yeah, and I do think people will have a decent chance because some people get at this Monday night, so hopefully it'll work out decently. I think it'll take some time. It won't be tonight, I think, at all that it's confirmed Boston sits guys. So I think you'll have your chances to try and
Yep.
get in on a good number.
I mean, and they could also still be live in the President's Trophy race if the Senators beat the Rangers. Like, there's a lot of balls in the air here. It comes down to just monitoring it. But I still think the Senators are fine at plus 180 if Boston wins. And then you just got to make sure you don't overreact if the Bruins do rest people on Tuesday night. A game that is pretty easy for us in this situation to break down would be the Capitals and Flyers. Because it is not possible for the Flyers to be eliminated tonight on Monday night, I should say. So this will essentially be a must-win game for both. It's no matter what happens with Washington, I think it's a playoff game, almost like a single game series playoff game for both of these teams. The Flyers can still catch Washington in terms of like the tiebreakers, or Washington, could essentially move up to the Metro number 3 as well. Like there's a lot going on here, but the long and short of it is, without trying to confuse everybody, this game will matter for both teams, no matter what happens on Monday night. So a little bit easier to break down. Washington will be on the second night of a back-to-back. They are playing Boston on Monday night for that one. As Nick said, like the Bruins are a favorite. He likes the Bruins there. I think that the Capitals definitely have a puncher's chance. Charlie Lindgren is starting on Monday night. I would expect them to go back to back if he wins on Monday night. I don't know if they've announced it yet. I don't think that they have said anything on how they'll delve up the second start, but I'm assuming that if Lindgren shows well, that they'll just go right back to him. It's been his story to write, so you got to dance with the guy that's brung you. I think Washington is, with Lindgren in goal, worth a bet here at plus 115. I know we've had a lot of success kind of just breaking down the Flyers and during this entire season at large, and one of the cardinal rules has been to avoid them when they are laying juice, and even though it's not a lot, I still think these two teams are so closely matched, and the goaltending discrepancy is how I get to Washington in a game that will just be an absolute slog. Nick, I think you're going the other way.
Yeah, I don't really think it will be a slug. I think Philly is going to pour it on and own a lot of the play. They put up 32 shots per game nearly for the last 15. Generating chances hasn't been the problem. Caps ranked bottom 5 in shots allowed. And that's with Nick Jensen. That's with Rasmus Sandin in there for a lot of that sample. Both of them are two of the Caps' actual established NHL pieces that are useful, which is pretty rare at this point. So it's past the point where they just have 7 useful D that can fill in. And I'll always point out how meaningful Nick Jensen is. He's one of their few well above replacement level pieces. So I think the Caps are going to get outplayed pretty heavily in this game. I think minus 135 is even a little short. And I also am going to be keeping my eye, as I feel like I was setting up here, on Lindgren's save prop. If it's 28.5, I'm playing the over there. I think that this is just a really tough spot for the Caps. And yeah, Philly's goaltending has been horrific. And a few of those games, I felt like the bottom did fall out there. But now it's only 2 games, but it really feels like they found it and stabilized. I think they're going to play a good final game of the year here, whether it means much or not, and just kind of pour it on the Caps. They'll be traveling back to back. So I like the Flyers, and I like the Lindgren saves over.
Well, I guess I'll split the difference here. I'd like over 5.5. In my handicap here, you guys kind of crept into your guys' analysis on either of your sides, which was, for one, if Lindgren is going back to back here, it'll be like his billionth game in a row. And I think that fatigue is certainly a factor, and, not the only reason to bet it. But then you look on the Philly side, and like, I can't trust their goaltending. And, I think the number is 5.5 because Leboff, we would expect like a slog type of game, like, a kind of a staring contest, but I just don't trust these teams' back ends, and especially the goaltending, enough to feel confident about, there being less than 5 goals in this game. So yeah, I like the over here.
I think one reason I like the Caps is that we've seen so many times in these situations where there's a specific game plan that they have to play to give themselves the best opportunity to win. They end up doing it really well, and I think that's a feather in the cap for the coach, but also like this team and the kind of core group it has. And come on, Nick, Dylan McIlrath, he was a first round pick. He was a first round pick.
Here's the thing for me, and how I would summarize my thoughts about how you're kind of giving them a lot of credit. There's 3-7 straight up over the last 10, and that's been like the maximum amount of points collected. Like that's been like Capitals juju, winning 1-goal games, winning behind Lindgren. So I think I'm lower on them than you are. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And McIlrath compared to Nick Jensen is horrible. So
we'll see. You never know.
I mean, it would be, a really amazing way to cap off kind of their surprising whole year, just to dig in when it just gets that much more impossible. But I'm scared they're going out 0-2 here. I think the Bruins.
Nah, it's
And
not
then
this.
them.
That's just not this team's way. It's just not been this
It's
team's way
not,
this
but at
season.
some point, it's like you can only dig in so
We're in
much.
game
The
81.
talent.
We're in game 81.
Yeah, but they haven't been up. I mean, first off, they haven't actually been. We're making it sound like they've been playing good lately. Like
No,
I
they
said, they
haven't.
haven't
I
been.
know,
They've
but
been losing a ton.
they hang around, and Charlie Lidgren
Yeah,
turns into Ken Dryden for an hour at a time, and that can work
we'll
against a
see.
team that has the issues that the Flyers have. We'll see.
They just need to play Tampa every night because
Yes, right.
that's their go-to. They love.
right.
They beat up on Tampa. They can't beat Buffalo, and that's gonna cost them a spot. It looks like.
Okay, another game that will matter for one side, no matter what, is the Wings and Habs. They are playing a home and home. Detroit is hosting as a prohibitive favorite on Monday night. So this one will go back to Montreal for Tuesday night. And I think the same situation applies here as it does with the Capitals, where if the Red Wings get a good showing out of Alex Lyon in game 1, I would be pretty shocked if they go back to James Reimer in game 2. I don't think that is going to be in the cards, so I'm going to assume, unless something happens, that it's going to be Alex Lyon again. I bet the Habs in the first end of the back-to-back. I don't think that the price looks that appetizing here without Montembeault. And that's a pretty big difference. It's part of the reason I like them on Monday. That said, I do think that this line, should Detroit win on Monday night, is going to take off towards the Wings a bit. So I think there might be an opportunity to get on Montreal, but definitely not going to play into the must-win premium on Detroit here, Tim.
Yeah, no, I keep nodding my head because you were bang on. I bet Montreal the second for Monday night, the second Montembeault got confirmed. And then you look at the second half of this, and it's like that price. I wanted to just bet it twice, right? Montreal twice, and just 2+ money prices, and say just win one of these for me. So I was disappointed to not be able to have a better number for the Tuesday night game. But you bring up a good point. With what goes on Monday night, there could be some baked in, Detroit must win. Like, this thing couldn't grow for a number of reasons. It could be public money, or casuals saying, "Oh yeah, Detroit got to bet. It's Montreal. Come on now." So I was looking to take more of advantage of that, and I guess time has not completely hit zero on that. There's still plenty of room for that to grow. And again, we like Montreal because we think they do a great job punching up. And I was already getting excited when I was kind of hearing a lot of the national media narrative of like, oh, well, Detroit has Montreal twice. Like, they have the easiest schedule. That we know better than that, especially the Montreal team it's been pretty, again, has punched up well this year.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the easiest schedule. I have to put it out there. Like, I like Detroit tonight. They opened -192. I thought that was short. And then this one, I'm not going to play.
Nick, Capital had easy. Nick, the Capitals had easy schedules. You get Buffalo twice. You get Ottawa. How'd that go?
I mean, Flyers too.
But there's nuances to all of it, right? Yeah. Like, you can't tell me that just because Montreal's scrappy, you'd rather play them than Boston. Like, you know what I mean?
No, not either or. I've just it's this wild card race has been very like how could you even utter the words like easiest schedule with the way these teams have like shown? I mean, that's more. It's what yes, it is the easiest, right? But it's nothing has been given here.
Yeah, they're all losable games. There's no winnable games. They're all losable games in this race.
Yeah, well, and I do agree. Like, I'm not touching it Tuesday in Montreal. Like, what that atmosphere is going to be like, and they get a chance to play what's close to a playoff game. So I kind of think Detroit finds a way on Monday, and then I'm not going to be on them Tuesday. I think it's going to be that'll be the one that I'm imagining is going to be like maybe they get it ends up being kind of surprisingly close. So we'll see. Good. And maybe I'll be wrong on Monday. Like, I do. I see your guys' points on Montreal. I just thought that was still a little short. I actually like the way Detroit's bounced back lately. We've talked about it a little bit. They had that really good win in Tampa. They lost competitively to the Rangers. Good win over Buffalo. Both of the recent Caps games that had so much meaning. I thought they clearly were the better team. And then a pretty solid win in Toronto on Saturday night. So I do think that the Red Wings have stabilized from when we were kind of really beating up on them in mid-March. So that's kind of part of my reason for liking them tonight, obviously, and why I'm staying off this one tomorrow, where I think it's like I can see the argument for the Canadiens, but yeah, I think it's just a little too.
Yeah.
You're not quite getting the price.
Could also, if you want to be, if you're feeling especially froggy, you can play the overtime both nights, because I feel like one of these games is probably going to overtime with the way that the Canadiens play. They've gone to overtime in back-to-back games. Obviously, one of them was against the Islanders, and the other one was against the Senators in a wild one. So that's another, I guess, a opportunity if you're feeling especially frisky. Let's move on to Canes and Blue Jackets. This one in Columbus, and there are some caveats that apply. Carolina's minus 265 at the time of recording. The Blue Jackets plus 215. The over-under here is 6. If the Rangers lose in any fashion to Ottawa on Monday night, this will be for number 1 seed in the Metro. If Carolina wins it and the President's Trophy, they do have that team DNA of like a group that won't look at any game as a play out the string kind of situation. So I guess you can consider that too. I will say that if the Rangers win on Monday night, I think I'd lean towards the Blue Jackets a little bit at plus 215. I want to go past it, but I'm expecting a ton of Canes money should the Rangers lose, which I do think is well, of course it's in the realm of possibilities, but I think that Senators are trickier out than the odds imply in that one on Monday night. Nick, what are your thoughts here on Canes and Blue Jackets?
Yeah, I just have to agree with you. I feel like obviously if it matters for the Canes, that's a little different. I don't think I could do the Blue Jackets. I tried that on Saturday and when they were catching Nashville in a favorable spot, and it was just pathetic. So I've had enough of them. I'm ready to call it a year.
So much easier to say that now when it's only like 1 or 2 games left.
There's
like
one game left. Like,
yeah,
let's
I
just
know.
move
We
on.
used
We're
to,
gonna go to. We're gonna
it
have
was the best
100
when it would
bets
be
on.
like January. We're like, I'm done with the Senators. Done with this.
Yeah.
40 games left to do it.
There's one game left, and then we're gonna have 100 bets on the weekend for the first round. Which so like I don't need to reach and bet this Canes Blue Jackets game.
When I said I was done with New Jersey last week, I don't think I ever bet him again. So I
Wow.
great discipline on my part.
Good for you, Tim. You've
yeah.
lasted 2 games probably.
Exactly. Well, very well done. But yeah, this will be. I have also Canes to win the Metro tickets from a couple months ago. So that's basically my rooting interest in the last couple games here. Nick, I think you were the first on that. Like 8 weeks back, I feel like.
I feel like everybody was there because there was a point where I think all the handicappers were looking at it and they're like, "Wow, the Canes are a better team. Like they've got enough track, and now we're kind of hurt and needing the Sens tonight, but we'll see."
Just what you want.
Yeah,
the Sens.
Yeah, perfect way to.
They owe us. They owe me money this year. So come through for once, Ottawa.
Let's talk about the Leafs and Panthers as best we can. This game is also could have some meaning to it should Boston lose on Monday night, but then again, like they also can win on Tuesday night to they only need to win one of their last 2 games to clinch the division over the Panthers, who are home, and I think the Panthers are already taking the approach of this is a completely meaningless game, and looks like they're going to rest anybody that's ailing. They're playing the team that they're overwhelmingly likely to play in the first round, the Toronto Maple Leafs, which adds some further complications to it. There also is the Austin Matthews 70 goal chase, which you can bet that however you want as well. I'm not going to be able to give you a smart analysis on whether or not you should bet him. And then there's also the Leafs are banged up without Max Domi. Bobby McMahon's out. Yarncroke remains out. I think Jake McCabe is probably going to play, but TJ Brody won't. It's lineup messes abound here for this game. All of which is to say, I've got nothing actionable on this one. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right with you. We'll see where the Matthews goal line is. I've played it like the last 4 nights, and I continue to think they aren't moving it enough. It's been like a 40 game sample where it's not even just this final push. If you look at the numbers when they're like minus 220 or minus 120, that's actually still too short for his half the season of what he's done. So and obviously if he plays, they want him to score. Now, with that said, Florida's a worse than average target, so I think you would at least need the minus 120 that has been out there recently. But I didn't really have much on this one either. It feels like a pretty pointless game. We'll see, I guess, what it means to Florida, like you said. And it feels like a weird game to kind of handicap as these teams get into it. I think it could be a little exciting. Like, are they going to try to send a message? The Leafs are now, supposedly tougher, and they're showing some pushback in all the areas that the Panthers just kind of mopped the floor with them last season. So I don't know. I don't really want to bet it. I don't really think there's a lot of angles there. Who knows what you get from either team? And I mean, it'll be a lot more exciting at the end of the week when we're probably breaking down the first round matchup between these teams.
Yeah, here's a short story. Today when this came out, I was on Twitter reading about the Leafs injuries, and so I went and bet Florida, and then refreshed Twitter again and read about Florida's injuries. So I feel like a pretty big idiot for betting Florida on open at minus 130. But I will say, they have Ekblad out, Verhaeghe, Barkov's questionable, Ekman Larsson's questionable, and the Leafs do have a similar thing going on. But I think, and I could be just trying to, operate on a mosquito here, but maybe Florida's let their guard down is still like better than Toronto's let their guard down. I guess I feel like Florida doesn't have to like pretend to be tough and mean and they don't need all their big guns to do that. I just feel like they could slog it all up and send a message, even though they're not playing their big guys. Again, that's kind of me grasping, but that's just kind of the vibe I have on the game.
Yeah, Toronto's been pretty damn good, though. We keep saying it. The interesting thing, though, this is the wall game, right? So
yes,
the one that I'm really interested in seeing is the final Samsonov game. I didn't think he was horrible on Saturday, but he did still get stuck with 5 goals against. He was pretty horrible versus New Jersey the game before. And like it's only one game, but I would not feel at all excited to be a Leafs fan if Samsonov heads in on 3 straight bad games. So I think that note's a little interesting, but yeah, I didn't really have too much here. I do think that, like you said, Tim, the Panthers injury situation is a little worse too, which is another factor here if you're considering this. Yeah, the Leafs have some injuries. I don't think Brody's making the first game of the playoffs. I really don't. I don't think it matters at the end of the day, but at this point, I think he's actually just the odd man out in their ridiculous pile up of like comparable D-men. So I don't know. The Panthers are definitely missing more important guys, and that also shows why it's just not that interesting because it's not going to be much to like read into terms of like the series coming up. I don't think one way or another. So it's just feels just like a game.
I think if I had to make a bet on this game, I would split my stake on, and this is gonna sound stupid, but I would split my stake on like under 1.5 and then on and over 9.5 because I think that this game could absolutely be a snoozer, or if like both teams just are like, you screw it, and turn it into a gong show, whatever. But
the other thing is about the Matthews debate. I would rather play him, and I think I've seen people say this, and I don't think you'd do it this way because it's just such a sign of like weakness. But I would rather play him in the game on Wednesday versus Tampa than the game tomorrow if you really felt like you had to sit him one. Just because we know what Florida's going to do. Like they're all going to be just trying to just get up in his grill as much as they can, which is the right idea. But it's also why it's probably a little scary to have him out there when you know kind of the way that the Panthers want to play and that they're going to meet in the weekend or on the weekend when it matters.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at with like, you have the Leafs team trying to get Matthews 70, and then you just have Florida that's like, oh, we're not playing anyone, but we're just going to like jump you for 60 minutes. Like,
okay. Kraken and Jets up next. This one in Winnipeg. Seattle plus 180. Winnipeg minus 218. Total here is 5.5. The Jets, man, 6 in a row. They've won. They had that crazy blowout win against the Avalanche over the weekend, and funny team, this Winnipeg Jets group. They still technically need to get their seeding in order still. They are either the 2nd or 3rd seed. We know that they're going to play Colorado, despite the fact that that series doesn't have a home team and an away team yet. There are betting lines out. Colorado is a slight favorite right now, minus 135 to win that series. So yeah, Winnipeg's going to want to wrap up home ice advantage. They can either do it against the Kraken or the Canucks, or have the Avalanche drop a point because they would get the tiebreaker as well. I think this still looks a little bit too much respect for Winnipeg against a Kraken team that, in what is their final couple games, you'd expect the effort to still be there from this group. And yeah, they're a little trickier than I think the odds imply. So I'm happy to take a shot on plus 180 or better. Nick?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this is kind of a specifically good matchup for the Kraken, given the way that the Jets want to play. I know that they had the bigger offensive nights on the weekend. I think a lot of that is the way that Colorado likes to get after it, right? And we've seen when Colorado gets out of sorts, things look so disjointed, and it leads to such high quality chances the other way. And these games between the Jets and Kraken happened last month. I think that's kind of replicable. I think that's the way that these two teams kind of match up against each other. The Kraken won their last game in Winnipeg, and I think we're getting the right number to kind of target that here. I think the Kraken have the avenues to make this into a super low event, tight checking affair, and that kind of sets up well with the Jets' weaknesses and is going to give them a good avenue. So I actually want to target the Kraken here. I think this one's going to be kind of a slog, and that plus 180 is really long given the way it's should be contested.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have a really good handle on the Jets after I made the Avalanche my best bet on Saturday. So you can tell me to go pound sand, but I like Seattle here for those reasons as well. And it's classic like baseball, classic hockey. These seasons, these sports with long seasons. Seattle's just lost 3 in a row. They're done. Obviously, they've lost to the Sharks. And then you just get Winnipeg on a 6-game heater, first game back from the roadie, and this is kind of what happens. Be very sports, to be very hockey. So yeah, I'm throwing a half unit on Seattle here before the playoffs. One last time, Seattle.
One last time. Hawks and Knights. The Blackhawks are traveling at plus 300. Vegas minus 380. Total here is 6. I've got nothing. Nick, you think that there is some room still to bet into the Knights in a rout?
Yeah, I like the bet, or the Knights. They're at minus 128 at the time of recording to cover the puck line. I actually think that's a really solid number. I don't want to overthink it. I think that that's a little low. I still feel like Vegas more or less is really coming around. The Aiden Hill situation is concerning when we're talking about this big of a number and looking at some of the soft goals he's let in. But I also look at their last 2 wins on home ice, and I feel really confident that they're just trending towards being one of the very best teams in the league. So when I look at where Chicago is at in entering this final week of the year here, final 2 games, I think that the gap is a little undervalued. I think this is one of these ones where the Knights should be closer to minus 500 than the minus 335. I want to keep riding Vegas. And the other one that I'm probably going to keep my eye out on is Thomas Hertl was plus 185 for 3 shots on Sunday, put up 5, not counting the disallowed goal. And so it would have been 6 and 2 goals without the disallowed goal. And I really think he's just starting to shine. He's on the top power play unit now. Second line is looking good. So I want to keep riding that. I think he'll probably still be plus 125. That'd be a humongous difference to record 3 shots. And I still think that I would play it at that. So I like the Knights. I like Hertl. I think that they're good. It's going to be a horrible matchup for Chicago here. And Vegas continues to have a really legitimate home ice advantage, which I kind of want to tap into as well. Some meaning to the game too. because we'll see. I guess there's a chance. There's no meaning. It's going to come down to how the Preds game goes tonight. But there is the possibility that this is Vegas playing to avoid Dallas in round one. So that is also kind of noteworthy when you're thinking about the spot.
Yeah, I think regardless too, Vegas needs to feel good about themselves. Like I don't think that they're like with the way they've like totally overturned their roster almost at the deadline, I don't really see it being like a wise decision to start when you just got Hurdle back in and you just have like working on this chemistry and all that to just start playing the rest game. I mean, they had half their team on LTIR. What do they need rest for? But yeah, I'm interested to see when we start do our playoff preview of what you guys think of Vegas. And how you stack them up against other teams. I was doing like my power ratings this morning just blindly for fun, and I'm like, I actually think Vegas is like in the top 4. It's like it's because I just I'm watching them do their thing over the weekend, and I'm like, yeah, it all looks good now. Like they just find a way to figure it out, and the names on that roster, it's like of course Hurdle has 2 goals. Of course. Like it's so that'll be an interesting discussion, but I tailed you on that, Nick, because I wanted to tap into that Vegas love. I was pretty blown away with the way they played over the weekend.
Yeah, and the other really interesting note, we kind of touched on it, but it seems like Logan Thompson's turning towards being the game 1 starter with how things have gone recently. That would probably be a short leash game 1 starter. And I'm right with you, Tim. We've got good Central Division futures, and I have absolutely nothing on the Knights. So it would be just so good if somehow the Knights could not get in that Central Division bracket. But at this point, pretty much, I mean, we'll see. The Preds get Pittsburgh tonight. I do think that they're better, had a better chance than their opening number said. So we'll see. It's an interesting narrative. But yeah, I Vegas is looking pretty scary. The only kind of caveat to that is, I guess the Preds only have 1 game left though.
Yes.
Okay, so I did phrase that kind of dumb. So it comes right down to that one. But yeah, I think
Nashville needs a point to lock up the wild card one because they have the regulation wins tiebreaker over Vegas. So yeah, but like you
and
guys
Vegas has Chicago and who? Someone bad. The other game. Oh, the other game's Anaheim.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
if Nashville
it's-
loses,
right.
it's on.
Exactly. And you, like you said, you'd probably, I mean, that's a coveted jump, avoiding Dallas and that Central Division. So, okay, that brings us to the Flames and Canucks here. The news, I'm happy. We usually catch pretty bad breaks just by the nature of needing to record this podcast when we do to make sure it gets out in time for everybody. But we caught one here with the news that Thatcher Demko has been confirmed as a starter for this one on Tuesday, just a couple minutes ago. Is it crazy for me to say? I think that makes me like the Flames more because a goalie he hasn't played. So I get he's probably an on paper upgrade, and this is a huge game for them to get him some reps. And I'm sure that they'll play him in both to get him reps, but I would not hate a little play on Calgary here at plus 170 in Vancouver for what could be a meaningless game outside of the Demko situation for the Canucks should Edmonton not get the full 2 points on Monday night, but wouldn't you know they happen to play the Sharks. So yeah, I think Calgary or nothing for me, Nick.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that angle of volatility. I actually kind of like the under if Markstrom's going to be confirmed. I'm kind of looking at it from the perspective that I think I want to put faith in Demko jumping back in and doing his thing. I still think the Flames are just completely terrible right now. I don't know why I didn't bet the Coyotes as an underdog in Calgary last night. That just felt like one that we all should have been on and is just true to this brand. So I still have no faith that the Flames are really playing overly well, but I do think that they'll kind of bring a scrappy and competitive effort. And we've seen the way that Vancouver continues to try to win, just locking everything down. So if it's Demko Markstrom, I think that the under 6 is actually worthy of a play. There's even 6.5 actually on FanDuel right now. that was kind of my lean on this one. I don't really have like a firm play. I can see your angle given that, it's a huge layoff for Demko. And I do think
Right.
that the Flames have kind of been competitive with Vancouver in their last couple meetings, but I don't know if I can quite do it. And then I'm also looking at it like Vancouver's defended really, really well recently. Obviously, I think a lot better than the analytics suggested in Saturday's game with DeSmith in goal. I think they should get a lot of credit for that win in Edmonton. I know McDavid was out of the lineup, but that kind of continues to be their avenue to success. I think we'll see them lean on that here with Demko making his return. So I like the under, and I don't hate Calgary either. Like I can definitely see where it's coming from. Plus 170 is pretty long. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I actually see kind of the lead off play on this game with the either alt under and like alt over because I just like I could also see this one breaking open for the reasons of like Demko's first game back, for the reason of Calgary, has been pretty abysmal. And with the Demko thing, I probably lean towards you, Leboff, just because I think that's a tough spot to be in. And do we know like I haven't read Rick talk it closely, but do we know if this is like a kind of getting the temperature of like, did they make sure he got a regular season game? So this would be technically like rushing him back, or, what's kind of the tea leaves there? I would have to, I'd have to read into before I made a play, but yeah, I'm not stoked to do Calgary one more time when we get to eliminate all these teams in like 3 days.
No, I think Demko's very ready to go. I think they've been pretty careful. Who knows? I guess you never know for sure, but it sounds like he was close like all of last week, and now I think they're happy to get him in there. And they do still have the game on Thursday versus Winnipeg, so I think
Yeah.
if he was still borderline at all, they wouldn't have him out there.
Yep. I agree. All right. So that does it for the show. We'll quickly just wrap up with our favorite bets. We already went over every game, so we'll just do it quickly. Tim, you mentioned the Senators. We'll go down as your favorite bet. For me, I'm gonna go with our Washington Capitals against the Philadelphia Flyers at plus 115 or better. Nick, what about you?
I'm gonna go with the spread or the night spread versus Chicago. I just think that's a little too short. If you can get better in minus 145, I would play it. I just feel like it's a really tough spot for Chicago, and I do think the gap between these teams is just that significant right now. And I also kind of like that the Knights are still learning to figure out how to play together, and they have all these guys back in the lineup that are, I think, really enjoying, being in Vegas and kind of have them up for this kind of a spot when they're just getting ready to push for the playoffs. And then I look at the Chicago side of things. There's just no goal scoring upside whatsoever. So I think the main thing to be afraid of is that Aiden Hill has been really bad lately. And as of now, I cannot seeing who's going to be the starter in this game. I'd prefer that it's just Thompson and that they just let him kind of solidify his hold on the net prior to the playoffs. But I would do it still if it's Hill, just not as excited.
All right. That does it. We will be back again for Wednesday night's games, and then we will likely we'll be back Thursday, but it might just be a playoff preview. But we'll know. By the way, these things shake out. It just depends on if those games on Thursday are completely meaningless or if they're not. So we'll let you know hopefully on Wednesday's episode. For Tim and Nick, I'm Michael. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you to our producers on the back end.